Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store.
Listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rye, the movie guy, and sitting inside the fish tank is Filmy and Phil.
How you doing tonight, guys?
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we get our butlers, we get our maids, we bring them together, and we discuss our top 5 favorite movies about servants.
You know, I imagine you probably had servants when you were growing up, Ryan. You just ring a little bell and somebody would come in with like your apple juice on a silver platter.
I had many servants, and my one regret is I don't remember any of their names.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Wouldn't that be terrible? Come on, Matt. No, I've never had a servant. Never lived a high life, I guess.
Yeah, me neither, man. Not even at like a fancy hotel with a butler or anything like that.
No, me neither. We are covering our favorite servants because we have a movie we're going to be reviewing in which that is a key element in the film.
Indeed.
Also, this week on Cinemajaw, we have a great guest joining us.
Yes, we do, Rye. We have Ryann Liebl joining us, who is an actress, filmmaker, writer, and director. She has a new film out called Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip, and I can't wait to talk to Ryann.
I'm excited to talk to Ryan as well. Besides that, we have more going on, don't we, Phil?
Oh, we absolutely do, Ryan. We are continuing our Denzel Washington celebration this month, and we also we threw a poll out on Twitter, and so we're going to check back in with the results of that because the answers will be in by the time we come out of break.
And as mentioned earlier, we have a review of White Tiger. That is the tie-in, a movie about servants.
Yes, and as Phil mentioned, we're celebrating Denzel Washington. His new movie, The Little Things, comes out January 29th. It stars Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. And it got me thinking, actually, Matt, when I was looking at that cast, I thought, wow, all 3 of them have actually won Oscars. It's a very strong cast. Yeah. And if I was going to rank them, I got Denzel at the top, no doubt. There's no question.
Absolutely.
Number 1.
Agree.
Between the next 2, believe it or not, I would put Rami Malek number 2 ahead of Jared Leto.
Oh man,
that's where I would put him. Yeah,
crazy dude.
No,
Jared
I'm
Leto
telling
above
you,
Malek.
No. He's not
Jared Leto
the talent of Rami Malek.
He's surpassed the talent. You're right. It's not near. He's far above. It's ridiculous.
No,
CinemaWAR.
You're going down, Matt K.
I don't think so.
Well, Ryan is going to have her hands full judging that CinemaWAR. Also, in honor of Ryan's movie, as you mentioned, Matt, it's called Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip. We're going to play Road Trip movie trivia. Yourself first, Ryan. How's that sound?
That sounds great. You know what? I would love to go on a road trip right now. It's a good idea.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is pretty jam-packed, so why don't we get started with a Denzel Washington fact?
Yeah, we've been talking about Denzel all month so far. We've been seeing him come up again and again in different films. Some of the places we haven't seen him come up, though, however, are in his remakes. If it's been made, there is a very, very good chance that Denzel might remake it. He starred in 4 different remakes. The most recent of which, obviously, was Magnificent Seven, but he was in the remake of Manchurian Candidate, Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and I didn't know this, but Man on Fire was a remake, too.
Wow. I had no idea he was in 4 remakes.
That's a lot of remakes, man. Didn't know that either. It is.
I don't think of him as being in many remakes. Magnificent Seven would jump out at me, but none of the others. But when you put it in that context,
checks out. Yeah,
it does. All right. We ready to have a fun jaw here, Matt K?
I'm ready, Rye.
I am too. You ready, Phil?
You know it.
Without further ado, we bring in our guest. Ryann Liebl is a filmmaker. She writes, she directs, she produces. She even started her own production company, and her latest film, Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip, is available to rent everywhere you can rent a movie. Ryan, welcome to Cinemajaw.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
So where are you calling in from, Ryan?
I'm in Florida.
Nice and warm down there?
Nice and warm, yes. I grew up in Wisconsin and I did the cold winter thing. And so I'm happy to be here in the sunshine.
Yeah, and I was going to ask actually because Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip is set in Wisconsin. And I was wondering if this was something that you would always set out to do. In the back of your mind, did you say, yes, at some point I'm going to make a movie set in my home state of Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think, when I was obviously growing up there, I got into acting at a young age. I think if I knew at that time that I could have made feature films in Wisconsin, I probably would have stayed in Wisconsin and done that. Instead, I went to LA and I pursued, my dreams in LA. But yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's a great landscape. There's a lot of talented people there. There's a lot of beautiful places to shoot. And I like this idea of writing something that was particular to the state that could be done in the state and executed well. And so that's how the movie happened.
Before we hit record for the second time, we were talking about art reflecting life a little bit, since the main plot of the film is about somebody who inherits a cabin up in Rylander, which in an odd twist of fate happened almost the exact same way to my wife. So I was curious, how did that idea come to you?
Well, obviously, I mean, growing up in Wisconsin, a lot of people know this. You guys know this being in Illinois because a lot of you guys come up to stay in cabins in Wisconsin. But it's very much a cultural thing there. A lot of people have a cabin somewhere that they go to get away to, especially in the summer. So it was an ongoing theme. My family had a small cabin. My parents and grandparents had a cabin. It's just something that people do there. Mm-hmm. So it was appropriate for a road trip comedy. I just thought, if I want to write a road trip buddy movie, make them go to a cabin.
Now, during this road trip, nothing seems to go perfectly here. You got characters getting a flat tire, locked out of hotel rooms, meeting campers on drugs. How much of this is true to real life? Did you draw on stories that actually did happen to you and say, oh my God, I think we've all been there where we said, I got to put this in a movie someday?
Yeah, definitely. I always make mental notes and I'm always writing scripts. So I always take what I experience in life and I put it in my scripts. There's a lot of things, like there's a scene at the motel and the motel owner, the things that she's talking about, something I actually experienced when I was in Colorado.
She was really into bingo.
She was really into bingo. And that was an actual receptionist that I met in Colorado on a road trip. And she said those exact same things to me. And I was like, this has to be in a movie. It's just too good. And then the campers, that was something I actually experienced.
No way. Some
friends of mine that I knew in college did some drugs. It did not go well. And I was like, we've never seen that sort of take on it. So I'd love to do something, the way that I write, I'm very old school in my love of physical comedy. I grew up with like I Love Lucy and you know what I mean? Like really great physical comedy. Robin Williams, there's just people that I really love and admire. And so I just wanted to see that in a movie again. It's just been a long time since I'd seen anything that was sort of, I don't want to say clean comedy because but it is. It's clean physical comedy. It's a movie that like your kids can watch with you and it's not going to be a bad thing. So I just have a love for that kind of, film. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to write this comedy and I'm going to take all these elements that I've loved from other movies and I'm going to put it in this Wisconsin ridiculous buddy movie.
That's awesome. It's like a love letter to Wisconsin. You use the completely Wisconsin crew. All the actors are from Wisconsin. So from pre-production to wrap, like how long did this thing take you to accomplish?
It ended up being about 6 months total. I was in pre-production, casting it, finding locations, all of that stuff for about 3 months. The shooting time itself was very short. I had a limited budget. I did the fundraising myself. So we shot everything in 17 days.
Oh, wow. That's fast.
Super fast. Super, super duper fast. And then, post-production, the editing, color correcting, and all of that, it was about another 3 months total of work to get it completed.
So I find it interesting, a lot of people that listen to the show and other guests that have come on talk about how difficult it is to get projects made. And you really seem to have just taken it into your own hands and just willed this thing to get finished, because not only did you write it, direct it, and star in it, but this is also the first feature film from your production company, correct? So walk us through that. I mean, you start a production company and you already have this film in mind to make.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I started in acting when I was about how was I? I was about 19. So I went to USC, I landed in LA, and I started in acting when I was 19 years old. And I had always had a passion for film. It's what I wanted to do, right, as an actor. And I didn't really want to do commercials, and I didn't really want to do modeling, and I didn't really want to do TV, even though I did all that because you have to as an actor. I really just always wanted to be a part of movies. So I had a lot of great experiences on set. I feel like I very much learned about the process of filmmaking from being an actor and being on so many different kinds of sets.
Sure.
Yeah, but for me, it was like, well, I guess I had gotten to the point where I was like, I could keep sort of playing other people's games, right? Mm-hmm. And be a part of projects that I wasn't all that passionate about, and or I could just take the reins, which I think is really important. And there's so many stories about, producers and directors who do that very thing, and start making material that was more aligned with what I sort of wanted to put out to the world, and obviously we know so many examples of that. There's Matt Damon, there's Tom Cruise, there's Clint Eastwood. I mean, there's so many people who are at the top of their game who said, that's it. I'm going to direct. I'm going to produce. I'm going to be the one who's pushing these projects forward and making them happen, because you get to a point where you realize you can't just wait around anymore or ask permission to sort of create what you want to create. You have to be the one who does it.
It's easier now, I think. I mean, in a certain way, because of the streaming services, Netflix, Amazon, iTunes, to get one's own project out. It's like we don't need permission anymore to get a project out there to a wide audience,
Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of just from cinema history. It reminds me a bit of the 70s, like when Martin Scorsese and Coppola were doing stuff. And then also it happened in the 90s a bit, like a lot of independent films came out in the 90s. And
yeah.
Right? It was like a big burst of independent filmmaking. I think because of streaming and because there are so many platforms and people do need media, it's the right time to do stuff independently, because you can find an audience, you can build an audience, and you can actually get your movie out there, which is kind of magical, really.
You said you had this passion for being a part of the movies. I'm curious, what were some of the movies you saw like growing up that sort of developed that passion?
Well, my parents were big movie buffs. They actually owned a Betamax. Do you guys remember Betamax?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Yeah. They didn't even have
Phil
VHS.
doesn't, but we do.
They were like, they were super old school. They wouldn't even buy a VHS. They were like, no, we do beta. And I was like, beta's like really rare, guys. And we didn't have cable. So my parents would actually buy physical copies of movies. And there were certain movies, like we had Empire of the Sun, mm-hmm. which, I saw when I was really young.
So did I. Yeah.
Really young. And I loved that movie, and it really impacted me. I was like, whoa, and I think it was the viewpoint of the child, and because I was a child, and it was so beautiful, and it told the story about the world, and there were so many like
It's a pretty epic film too.
It. Yeah. And then we had like other old school movies. We had Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Trading Places.
Oh, now we're getting to the classics.
Yeah. And then, we had old movies too, because my parents were fans of like Hitchcock and stuff like that. So we had some Hitchcock, Gorillas in the Mist. We owned just random stuff. But I would watch these movies over and over again. And then when I was in middle school, I was like 13 years old, and I was like, I really want to act. I've been one of those little kids who was always performing and doing stuff for my family, but I was terrified of getting up on the stage, but I was like, I'm going to do it. And then as soon as I started doing theater in school, and we had a great theater program at my high school, like, oh my God, like crazy good. That was kind of it for me,
Yeah. Just kind of grabbed you from there.
Yeah. You start doing really great plays, and you're like, and you work with a team, and you make some magic, and you can hear a pin drop in the audience, and you're like, this is kind of amazing,
Yeah. And speaking of acting and going back to the movie, Mags and Julie, was this actress who played Julie somebody that you were familiar with beforehand? Because you guys had a rapport that really made it feel like, oh, well, this is just two best friends that grew up together. They're not actually, like met on, a movie set, but somebody that you knew for a long time.
Yeah. Elizabeth Donaldson plays opposite me. I met Elizabeth over 12 years ago in LA through mutual friends. And then not long after that, she ended up moving to Nashville. She transplanted fully over to Nashville, and she started doing acting and all kinds of things in Nashville, and really took off there. But we stayed in touch over the years. And when I was sort of thinking about who would be the perfect sort of, because I was thinking about Abbott and Costello, right? I always think about Abbott and Costello when I think about comedy, right? They've got to be the opposite, or like Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon.
The Odd Couple.
I mean?
Yep.
You got to have that dynamic. And so I needed to find an actress that could play that opposite to my very cranky, very, very mad, very angry about life Mags. So I talked to a few people, and then I sort of was working with Elizabeth. Kind of played around. We were working with each other, and I was just like, you should just play with me a little bit. And I was like, yeah, she's great. I said to her, you're perfect. Let's do this.
Nice. You guys had that perfect rapport. I agree. That one scene in particular, and this isn't a spoiler, where Mag says to Julie, do all of your shirts have rainbows and unicorns and butterflies on them? I love that.
Yeah.
It illustrates the difference between the characters pretty well.
Yeah. That, Julie is very bohemian and flighty and loves life and thinks everybody's perfect and wants to, help the world. And Max is like trying to keep it all together and is very critical. And, she just can't take it. She can't take the rainbows and the unicorns, which, I think we've all been at that point in our life at one point with friends. We're like, just stop with the positivity because my life sucks.
Yes.
I love it. And I like that you did sell it, because I didn't think of it this way, but it is a comedy for the whole family. You're right. If people are listening and they have kids, it's something that you could put on, and I think everybody would enjoy. Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip. It's available. We can rent this anywhere that people are renting movies these days. Amazon, Apple, everywhere.
It's streaming everywhere, wherever you want to get it. Google Play, Vudu, Fandango now, they stream. Everybody's streaming.
It's fantastic.
So, yeah. And if you want to get a hard copy, if you want to go old school, which some people have.
Do you have it on beta, though?
Exactly. Is it available on beta? You can get hard copies.
So where should we send them online if they want to get a hard copy or find out more about the film? Is there a website to go to, all that good stuff?
magsandjulie.com is the website. And then, yeah, I mean, you just search the movie title, comes up everywhere. It's on TCM. It's at Target, Best Buy, Walmart. It's
Nice.
all over.
Ubiquitous. Everybody do it. And as always, we'll have the links to the website in our show notes.
Definitely. Now, Ryan is going to be sitting in on this entire jaw. She has her top 5 favorite servant films picked out. Should be a blast, eh, Matt?
I'm ready.
Yeah, let's get to this review. The White Tiger. Matt, in my Letterboxd review, I described The White Tiger as a hardcore take on Slumdog Millionaire. There is even a reference about Slumdog in the movie. So the question is, does this grittier take on the vast divide in the Indian caste system hit harder than we have previously seen? With the film now streaming on Netflix, Matt and I grabbed a seat on the couch to check it out.
When I first saw him, I knew then this was the master for me. I want to be a driver for your son.
Hey, how much rope?
Hey, don't do that.
Hey, driver!
I'm Pinky. Nice to meet you.
Balram, have you ever seen a computer?
We had many of them in the village with the goats.
The goats are pretty advanced to use computer.
Okay, now you're being a jerk.
I didn't like the way he had spoken about me. Since I was a boy, the desire to be a servant had been hammered into my skull.
The White Tiger opens up with our main character, Balram, doing some narration. At times, this can come off as lazy, but in this case, the narration is actually Balram writing the Prime Minister of China, who he had heard was coming to India on a business trip. He has big ideas on how the two of them can work together. Before we get there, we have to go back in time to see how we arrived at this point. Now, there is a quote early on in the film, and the quote is, "There are two Indias, one of light, one of dark." The caste system in India is thinly explained in the film, and we get the idea that Balram is in a lower caste and looks up to the wealthy family who runs his poor village. Early on, he accepts the fact that he is supposed to be a servant. Eventually, he gets a job as a driver for Ashok and Pinky, who have just returned from a trip from America. All seems good until they have a deadly accident, which shows that this wealthy family does not really care about him at all, and all they care about is protecting their own. This causes Balram to rebel and look for a way to become his own businessman and master. Matt, the film has some humor mixed in, especially between the many different servants who gather together in the parking garage of a hotel. Did The White Tiger's tone work for you? And did you learn something from this movie?
I definitely learned something from this movie. I think anytime, a culture is examined that I'm not, intimately familiar with, it's hard to not walk away learning something. Did the tone work for me? I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm very on the fence about this movie because it really walks a very tightrope between comedy and drama. And there's a definite darkness to this movie. And I'm not sure when I walked away from the film, I found it a little mean-spirited. And I'm not 100% sure that they developed a sympathetic character in Balram. And I'm not even sure if that was the point or if they were even trying to. So the cultural aspects and the learning that I took from this movie, I did enjoy, but the characters, spending time with them, I felt kind of grossed out at the end. And I don't know if I liked it.
Well, I think Pinky, who is the girlfriend or soon to be wife of the main character who Balram is driving for, she's the one that is I think our eyes into the film, talking about how Balram shouldn't be a servant. He shouldn't be calling them master or looking up to them. And she even asks him at one point, what do you want to do with your life? Right? Because all he is at this point is thinking about serving them. And she's the one that's trying to break him out of the mold at first. She's probably the nicest and best character in the film, I think.
I guess, but even her, and I don't want to give anything away, but even she gets corrupted and at one point gives something to Balram that's kind of sleazy in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I didn't find it that. I think it coming from her, she didn't mean it to be a sleazy way of.
Yeah, but that's my
our
point.
perception.
She didn't
I
even
know.
She didn't even know how diminishing that was. You know, she in that moment, maybe she thought she was doing something kind or something right, but later on, Balram's character says, "Is that what she thinks she owed me?" And we realize that there's no sum that could possibly make up for what she's already taken. You know,
Right.
So I didn't find her character sympathetic either.
Well, I do like that the film tried to go with some like darker humor, because I thought this was strictly going to be almost like a thriller and how this guy comes up from a lower caste to sort of take over or do some type of crime to get to a higher status. And it's actually a lot funnier than I thought going in.
There's a lot
attempted to be.
There's a lot of humor. Two things really annoyed me, though. I want to get your take on these things. First of all, I am sick of this trope now where movies start in the middle. They start.
Oh, I love this. I love this.
Really? They start off with the big action set piece, and all of a sudden, like they're in a car crash, and then, oh, but wait a second. Let me go back and tell you the story of how I got.
Loved
to
it. Absolutely loved it.
Can't stand that. It's
I
a
loved
lazy writing technique. I'm
And in
over it.
fact, the reason why I liked it so much too is Balram is dressed in this like silly outfit.
It was very Wes Anderson.
Right. They cut right into the action and you're like, what the hell is this? So I like that it kicked off that way because it was like a jolt of like, oh, I'm going to really like this movie. And then it was like, hard pause. Let's see how we got to here. And they scale back. And then when they finally do get to that point, it's a different tone because now we sort of know what's going to happen. In the first time we see it, it's almost funny because these characters are having a good time in the car, dressed kind of silly. And the second time we see it, it's more dreadful because we know what's going to happen now. So I completely was actually going to say that's a positive for me this time around.
Okay. And now the second thing, and I got to dance around this without giving away the end of the movie. There's a big reveal, right? Because you already mentioned that he's writing the Prime Minister of China. So things have changed for Balram by the end of the film. That much we know from the very, very beginning. But when we finally zoom out and we see exactly his station in life and he explains it, I was completely let down and disappointed. I mean, it was kind of dumb. Do you not agree?
Well, I mean, it was creative. I'll give him that. But I guess if he's writing the Prime Minister of China, in our mind is thinking like this guy really became super successful.
Yeah.
And we're thinking like, wow, I wonder what he invented. And in the beginning of the movie, in the time frame that this is taking place, we're even describing how people in India were still discovering the internet. There's a line in there where they're asking people, do you know what the internet is? It's right when it's about to explode and people don't. So there has this idea of like, oh, maybe Balram's going to become this, billionaire that we don't know. And I guess it is a bit of a letdown, but
yeah. Didn't like it, dude.
My one gripe on it is there is a scene where he talks about and actually envisions what would happen to his family and his village if he was to turn against the masters that he serves. And we don't end up seeing exactly what happens.
No. Well,
but I don't think he gives enough thought about it either. I mean, it's set up like it's completely gruesome. And I don't know. I thought that was handled a little weak.
Well, which time do you mean? Because he does have this fantasy where we see some violence happening in his village because he's dreaming about it or he's daydreaming about it. Is that the time you mean, or at the end when he?
The end, because obviously we've seen him daydream about how horrific things could go, and then at the end, I don't know if that really weighed in his decision that much.
I think it was already implied what happened to them, and the newspaper sort of summed it up well enough. That didn't bother me.
All right. Well, I like this one, I think, a little bit more than you. You got a movie poster quote for us?
I do. White Tiger is a ferocious, singular look at duality. That's something we didn't bring up, actually. Can I explain briefly?
Do.
The whole movie is about duality. There's There's the master-servant relationship. There's the husband-wife relationship. There's the rich and the poor relationship. There's always two sides to the coin. The thing that Balram becomes, he starts as this kid and then he becomes the white tiger, right?
A master and apprentice.
Yeah, if you will. So anyway, I found that part of it interesting from the writing perspective.
Wow. I mean, I don't even want to say my poster quote now anymore. I just went with how I led off my review, a gritty take on Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. How many Jaws are you giving it?
I'm 2.5 Jaws. I would slightly recommend this one, especially starting out the year here on Netflix.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a spin. How about you?
So I busted out the rare quarter jaw for this.
I
This
hate
is
when you do this.
2.25 Jaws. This is, it just didn't quite get to 2.5 for me, but it's definitely not a 2-jaw movie. It's slightly better. 2.25 Jaws.
All right, Jawheads, if you see the white tiger and you agree, disagree with us, shoot us a tweet at CinemaJaw, or you can email us feedback@cinemajaw.com. Obviously, the white tiger is a movie about servants, and that got us thinking, wow, we've done 500. This is our 501st episode, Matt.
I know.
And we've not done movies about servants. What is wrong with us? We got to tackle this.
I know, right? It goes from like sci-fi, horror, comedy, servants. That's like one of the main genres of film.
Yes, that's where we're at on our 501st. Ryan, you're our guest. We threw this to you rather late. So was this an easy list for you to come up with, or was it actually difficult to narrow down to 5?
It was difficult because I was looking at it from a different viewpoint. Obviously, when we're talking about servants, that's more of an English thing, right? There's a lot of English movies with servants and butlers and and there's a big history there too with servants. So I was thinking about English movies, but then I was like, so what's the American version of that? And the American version is housekeepers and people tend your home, right?
Yeah. Well, you're getting us started. What do you got sitting at number 5?
Well, I put in Mrs. Doubtfire, which is sort of an interesting take on a servant movie. And of course I love comedies, so I had Mrs. Doubtfire on there.
Do you think the makeup in Mrs. Doubtfire holds up? I mean, obviously the performance from Robin Williams is great, but does the makeup hold up to this day?
I think so. I mean, obviously all that stuff has gotten better, but I don't know. I think it does. I think it's part of what makes it funny, is that it's not perfect. It's a little odd looking.
It worked on the characters in the movie. Like nobody doubted Mrs. Doubtfire whatsoever.
Well, of course, it's the movies, Matt.
Yeah,
Lois Lane couldn't recognize Superman with a pair of glasses on.
There
right?
you go. Yep.
Yeah, which I always found really odd. I was always like, yeah, it's clearly him.
Clearly.
Good.
All right. Swinging it over to me at number 5. I have a really guilty pleasure. Guys, I saw this movie with my mom. Okay. And for some reason, it just became one of those movies that I watched way too many times. It's starring Nicolas Cage and Shirley MacLaine. And it is about, in this case, the servant is a Secret Service agent who is detailed to guard the widow of a president who is, left office, played by Shirley MacLaine. The name of the movie is Guarding Tess. Have you guys
Sounds lovely.
Have you guys ever seen this?
I totally remember that movie. It's a great movie.
It's okay. I mean,
We got a great from Ryan.
It was a great movie.
She clearly had it on beta.
It's It's definitely noteworthy with those two in it, I suppose. And, I watched it like 6 times growing up. So I like Guarding Tess. It's just my number 5. We're climbing up the ladder.
Yeah. I don't know if I should write that one down in my journal. Phil, in the fish tank, can you see what the tomato reading is on Guarding Tess? My number 5 is a film that came out in 2013. I don't think I've talked about it. We may have reviewed it on CinemaJaw, and then that has been it. But when we're talking servants, I went with The Butler. This was directed by Lee Daniels, starring Forrest Whitaker. as Cecil Gaines, a butler, and it's based loosely on a true story. A
Right.
butler who worked at the White House for 34 years and obviously saw the country go through major social and political change. And the movie, I hate when they do this. I remember it coming out and it was marketed as a very prestigious Oscar bait type film. And then when it fails at that, everybody's perception then sometimes of the movie sort of goes down. Like, well, it didn't get any Oscar nominations, right? But it's still a damn good movie and so many fun performances, because what they did is they just threw in all these strange actors playing the different political heads through the years. So you get Robin Williams plays Dwight D. Eisenhower. John Cusack plays Richard Nixon. Alan Rickman plays Ronald Reagan. Jane Fonda plays Nancy Reagan. And all of those are very small roles because the focus here is on the butler, played by Forrest Whitaker, as he ages through all of these different presidential campaigns. And it's a good movie.
I
like
still
The
haven't
Butler.
seen it.
Well, yeah, I like Forrest Whitaker a lot. I always have. I just love that guy. He also went to USC and he spoke when I was there, and he's incredibly humble and down to earth, and he's very soft spoken, and he really takes his work seriously. I don't know if I felt like that movie was executed that well. I remember watching it and I was really excited about it because it was such a fun story and it's based on a true story. But I felt, I don't know, it felt disjointed to me, or I don't know. But I love Forrest.
Yeah.
Agree.
Oh, only my number 5. If Matt can put Protecting Tess on at number 5, I should be able to have the butler, guarding Tess, whatever the hell the thing's called.
Hey, man, yeah, you can have the butler there.
All
It's
right,
definitely
thank
not worse than guarding Tess.
All right, into our 4s we go. What do you got sitting there, Ryan?
I put down The Help because I thought that was a good servant movie. And the thing I liked about that movie is it was like just a powerhouse cast of awesome women. And they're all amazing and they were all in tip top form, and it's very funny and yet it's very tragic and you can't help but love all of them. I think the actors in that film did an incredible job. And I also just like the way that the film was shot and structured. I just thought it was a very solid film, and I'm a big fan of happy endings. So I like the happy ending.
I remember seeing that in the theater. I've only seen it the one time. I don't know how well it holds up. I haven't only seen it once, but the cast, Viola Davis, Octavia Spencer, Emma Stone, it's a huge cast.
Was this kind of a breakup for Octavia Spencer also?
Yeah, Octavia Spencer. Yep. Yeah.
It's a good pick at number 4. Matt, what do you got sitting there?
All right, you guys are going to make fun of me again, but I have kids, so go easy on me. I have an animated film from 2015 at number 4. But hear me out, because I think when you think about servants, these guys became like ubiquitous pop culture icons of the servant or the henchman or the minion. So I'm talking about Minions from 2015.
Oh, wow.
Is it the best Despicable Me film? Arguable, probably not, but it is the one that is most about servants, Ryan. And I thought that the Minions movie was pretty darn cute.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've seen all 3 of the Despicable Me's.
I know you're a big fan,
but I've not seen the Minions movie. I've not seen it.
Why not? They're the funniest part about Despicable Me.
I don't know. If it's streaming somewhere, Phil, throw that in the fish tank. I'll watch it tonight.
I'm sure it is.
Because I am a fan of the Despicable Me's. Is Steve Carell in that one?
I think he makes like a brief appearance. John Hamm, I'm looking at the voice cast. Michael Keaton. It's like a heist movie. It's about how the Minions become.
Sold me, Matt.
Yeah, there you go. That's all you need to know. The Minions.
All right. My number 4, I went horror. You got to go horror every once in a while when you're talking about servants. And in 2001, this film's notable for a few reasons. And number 1, I think it was the first time I became like a real big fan of Nicole Kidman. Prior to that, I don't know if I had seen a movie where I was like, wow, Nicole Kidman's really a star. But this movie helped turn my eyes that way. I'm going with The Others, which came out in 2001. And this is where Nicole Kidman Stars as Grace, a woman living in, let's just call it what it is, a scary mansion with her 2 children. And
It's a haunted house.
Yeah, she hires 3 servants to help around the house. And that's when the kids start seeing things and hearing things. And so does Grace. She at one point witnesses the piano sort of playing itself. Are there ghosts in the house with them, Matt? Ooh, well, we got a twist. This came right after The Sixth Sense.
I was going to ask. Okay.
It's definitely in that vein. And it was one that still worked, even though the twist, I think, is very much similar to The Sixth Sense. We still, I think, were thrilled at the end of the others. I know I was a big fan. Have you seen this one, Ryan?
I never saw that one. I mean, when we're talking about servants, are we talking about like the best movies that have been made with servants?
Well,
clearly not so far.
These are good ones. I mean, Matt, I can't speak for him and Guarding Grace or whatever the hell the movie was.
Guarding Tess, man. It's not that hard.
Whatever that is. But I mean, let me tell you, the others is actually a quality film.
It is, although I don't know. When I think of the others, I think of a haunted house movie. I do think about that twist. I didn't even remember that there were servants in it, to be completely honest with you.
Oh, yeah. Because the whole time I thought the servants were the ones doing the haunting up to the no good. They're really creepy, the servants that she hires.
I don't remember that bit of at all.
Oh, yeah. The others, my number 4. All right, into our 3s we go. Ryan, what do you got sitting there?
I put down Remains of the Day with Anthony Hopkins.
Now, this is a classy pick.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were doing.
Usually.
Yeah. I saw this one a long time ago, but I remember really loving this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's Anthony Hopkins, and he's, a butler, right? And it's very British, and it's very moody. But the acting in that movie is so brilliant. And it really, like Anthony Hopkins, I mean, he's so good in everything. But
yeah.
what I love about that movie is they really give him moments to really be in the moment and create that guy. So yeah, that's what I have. Number 3.
Yeah, there's an atmosphere in that movie that's so well created. It's just like the kind of movie that you can just sit in and feel like you're part of the era and the surroundings. Not all movies are like that.
And the thing is too, like films have sped up so much lately, like especially the last 10 years, they're all like video games. And I miss that kind of cinematic, quiet, being in the space, in the moment, and just, I don't know, the atmosphere. And that movie was a lot to me like movies from the 30s and the 40s. It took its time and it really built everybody, and you cared about everyone. And I don't know, it was a good one.
It was. Matt, now I'm nervous. Okay. Ryan's trying to class it up here. So let's not go Nick Cage. Let's not go animation.
I'm shifting into high gear here. Yorgos Lanthimos from 2018, The Favorite.
Oh, well done, Matt. Well done.
I absolutely adored this movie, and he's just a weird filmmaker. Like if you see his name on a movie, you know you're in for an absolute trip. This one I think is probably one of his lighter movies, even though it's also kind of heavy at the same time. But you got Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz, and Olivia Colman in an Oscar-winning performance from Olivia Colman.
Correct.
She plays Queen Anne, and these 2 servants, one a little higher and one a little lower, sort of vie to be her favorite at any given point in the film. It's just ridiculous what happens, especially to Rachel Weisz, and when she gets her eye poked out in the village. It's a really funny, dark, twisted film that only could come from Yorgos Lanthimos.
She's also left at a brothel at one point and has to make her way back. I mean, that scene was hysterical when she comes back. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's like speaking of Wes Anderson, it's got that sort of vibe to it a little tiny bit, you know?
Yeah. Okay, I can get behind this one. Ryan, you're a fan of The Favorite as well?
No.
Really? You didn't like it, or?
I wanted to. And when I first started watching it, I liked it. And then when it started getting really freaking creepy and gross, then I was like, I'm out. I don't know. It just wasn't my vibe, you know?
It's fair. It does definitely slide. It gets darker and grosser.
Gets real dark, real like, whoa, what is happening? It's what have we, now it's not a comedy. Now it's real dark.
Have you seen his other films?
Probably.
The Lobster with Colin Farrell, Dogtooth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
He's
they're all
dark.
sort of messed up in some way.
My number 3, I keep it classy here. I go with one of the all-time great directors, Robert Altman, who gave us in 2001. I think actually only because my top 2 are both masterpieces. I originally wrote this film down and thought it would be my number 1, Gosford Park. And for fans of Downton Abbey, if you're listening to this podcast, this is the inspiration for Downton Abbey. And in fact, doing the research for this podcast, I read that, in fact, Downton Abbey was supposed to be a spinoff of Gosford Park. But as they started writing the show, they decided to sort of make it its own thing, that it could stand on its own without having a tie-in to the film. But Gosford Park came out in 2001, and it follows like a large party of wealthy Brits, and there's an American producer among them as well, and all their servants. So it's very much in that Downton Abbey style, where the servants then would go downstairs, cook, do anything that the wealthy people upstairs needed. And a murder occurs at a dinner party, and the film then goes on to present the investigation from the servants and the guests' point of view.
So it's like Clue.
It is. It very much is. And it's a very large ensemble cast, which Altman was fabulous at. He was probably the best at it. And you get the sort of a comedy to a degree, but there's also drama and, a bit of a thriller of a whodunit kind of thing, all mixed together. It's just one entertaining movie. Gosford Park. I love this one. Gosford Park.
Okay. I haven't seen it. I got to check that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to like a Clue detective kind of movie, that's one of the best executed.
Really?
Wasn't there that movie that came out recently?
Knives Out?
Yeah. And it didn't quite work, but Gosford Park was perfect.
Yeah.
But you're right about Robert Altman. It's Robert Altman.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. He can't do anything wrong.
No, you can't.
That was my number 3, Gosford Park. Into our 2s we go. Ryan, what do you got sitting there?
Oh, man. Well, I wrote down a kind of odd one, but it kind of works with the theme. So I wrote down The Talented Mr. Ripley.
I love this movie.
Yeah, right. I was looking at it from the viewpoint of Matt Damon, who's kind of like this lower class dude, and he goes into this other world, and I don't know. So, he infiltrates them and impersonates them, and there was so many things about that movie that were I just didn't expect,
Me and Matt doing this show 500 times. The Talented Mr. Ripley comes up quite a bit because we're big fans. So yeah, no argument here. Even though technically he isn't a servant, right? If we wanted to,
he does
get technical on it.
At a certain point in the movie, though, he does sort of pose as like an assistant or something, right? That's one of his ins.
No, I think in the beginning he poses as like a classmate of Dickie's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and then that's how he's sent over there to bring him back.
Right.
Who's oh man, the master, help me out.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, the scene where Matt Damon murders Philip Seymour Hoffman.
It's great.
It is. It's a brutal, great scene.
Matt, what do you got sitting at 2?
All right. In 2016, I wasn't completely sold on Kristen Stewart being a good actor, and Rye, the movie guy, kept telling me, no, she's good, but I just hadn't forgiven her for the Twilight films. And then comes Personal Shopper. And this movie, I have to say, blew me away. Absolutely sold me on the fact that Kristen Stewart is a talented actor, big time. And it was kind of like unlike any other movie I'd ever seen before, and maybe since. It's definitely a servant movie. She plays a personal shopper, as the title implies, whose job it is to go shop for this rich woman. And a great scene, by the way, where she's trying on all the clothes of the rich woman. And she's also a psychic. There's this whole subplot where she's trying to communicate with the ghost of her brother. She has no problem in the rules of the movie. She truly is psychic, and she has no problem communicating with other ghosts, but she can't quite get through. And then there's a mystery on top of all of this. It's a complicated movie in a good way. I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite movies of the year in 2016, for sure. Did you guys both see this? I know you have, right?
See it.
You haven't seen this one?
Oh, no, I've never even heard of it.
It's a good one. Yeah. Obviously big fan as well. I know we reviewed it on the show, Matt. And this was sort of Kristen Stewart's rise to like, oh, wow, she's really doing some, as you said, complicated work. This wasn't a Twilight movie suddenly. It had a lot more going for it. Big fan.
And to be fair, she had done some stuff leading up to this, but this is the one that really broke it out for me. And Ryan, as a filmmaker, check out how she does, or how the filmmaker in this does cell phones, because it's a real problem. We spend so much of our time on cell phones, and to show that in film can be difficult. I think this movie handled it probably the best still that I've seen.
The best texting film of all time. That was
Best.
your movie poster quote. I remember it now.
I think it might have been. That's interesting. We'll throw that in the fish tank. I'll look up my my movie quote.
All right. My number 2 ended up being my number 1 movie of the year that it came out. A huge fan of this movie. Saw it at the Chicago International Film Festival and had tears in my eyes as I gave it a standing ovation. I'm going with Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, my number 2.
Yeah.
And this is a take on a live-in housekeeper of a middle-class family. And it's semi-autobiographical on Alfonso Cuarón's life and his upbringing in the Roma neighborhood in Mexico City. And we see here that a servant live-in, how did I describe it? A housekeeper, I guess.
She's like a nanny housekeeper. Yeah.
Right. How close this particular person can be to children. And in this case was really the mother figure of the family to the children, and put her life and her needs and everything that was going on in her life to the side, and definitely behind the needs of the children. And I think seeing Cuarón make this film as sort of a love letter to her is him then being older and realizing all the stuff that was going on in her life that she had to deal with, and still, when it came to the children, make them feel like they were the number 1 priority in their life. And the ending at the ocean, it's a beautiful moment of her realizing the family that she has already, these kids that she's been taking care of. It's just a really special movie, shot in black and white and just literally gorgeous to look at. The cinematography is incredible. I'm a huge fan of Roma. It's a masterpiece, I would say.
I agree. No doubt about it.
Ryan, are you going to poo-poo on this one, or?
No, I don't think I can. I mean, yeah, I think that's a great example of this theme, I think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking earlier, Ryan, about how they don't make them like they used to. And then along comes a Roma, which does like sort of take its time. It dwells on certain imagery. It repeats in satisfying ways. Great movie. I agree.
All right. This is CinemaJaw, and these are our number 1 picks for servant movies. Ryan, what do you got sitting there?
Well, this was really hard for me because I was like, God, there's so many great movies and they all have servants in them. And so I wanted to kind of stay with that theme, but I'm like, the servant isn't the main character in these. So I had a tie between Gone with the Wind and To Kill a Mockingbird. And there's servants in those movies. So, and they're kind of, and Gone with the Wind is very much a take on someone who's lost all kinds of money and has gone downhill, and she's got this team of people behind her who still have her back. I don't know. I think they're kind of on the nose, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Can't argue with either one of those, though.
Yeah.
They're definitely classics. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I don't think it perfectly fits your servant theme, you know?
We
Well,
can
I
go
mean,
with it. If Matt can have the Minions on
exactly.
his list,
Well, there you go.
it works.
Yeah. All right. I'm throwing it all the way back to Hitchcock. And there's maybe a couple to choose from, but I'll go with Rebecca. Laurence Olivier and Alfred Hitchcock. What else do you have to say? The remake, was it last year, right? 2020 was pretty good. I liked it a lot. And in doing the research for that, I had never seen Rebecca. I've seen many Hitchcock films, just hadn't seen the original. Watched the original Hitchcock film, only meant to watch 5 minutes of it just to see a little bit of it, and sat down and watched the whole thing straight through. It was that captivating. It holds up. I watched it very recently. I think it was breathtakingly beautiful. It's in black and white. The servants play a major role as far as, you know, they're kind of pivotal. They sort of hold this allegiance to this dead woman, and won't let the new wife sort of ascend into the role of the matriarch of the house. So it was great. The evil, man, I forget the character's name. Can we throw it in the fish tank, Phil? The main like Nurse Ratched type character in this. You know who I'm talking about, right, Ryan?
Oh, sure. In the remake, it was Kristen Scott Thomas who played her, but I don't know the character's name off the top of my head.
She's up there in my opinion with like a Wicked Witch of the West, you know, just so vile and mean. And it was great. Both performances, the original and the remake. Take your pick. But of course, I'm going to recommend Hitchcock first.
All right. Leaves it with my number one. And I go foreign film, number two and number one. I didn't even realize that. But I highly recommend checking this one out. Came out in 2006 from South Korea. The director is Park Chan-wook, who gave us Old Boy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Handmaiden is the name of the movie. It is my number one pick. And the film has such a crazy plot that involves everything from suicide to reading pornographic books that it would take me a long time in a diagram to explain it all. And we're not going to go through that. But the main plot I will give you is this. It's about a con man who wants to marry a rich woman and steal her inheritance. So what he does is he gets a young woman who is working currently as just picking pockets for a living, and he gets her hired as the rich woman's handmaiden, and her job is then to convince this woman to marry him. And of course, that's just the opening plot. Everything gets more twisted from there. If you're a fan of Old Boy, and I know, Matt, you love this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It comes up quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I say this in all honesty. I think this is as good or better than Old Boy. I think there's a case to be said that this is Park Chan-wook's best film, believe it or not.
Is it violent?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's wild. It's got a kinkiness to it. It's got a just weird filthiness to it. You'll love it. It's right up your alley.
Jeez,
if you love the Minions, you're going to love this.
All right. I'm sold.
It's 1930s, right? 1930s Korea, right?
Yeah. Yes. And it's streaming now on Amazon Prime, Matt. So you have no reason after we get done recording not to watch this movie. It's right up your alley. Have you seen it, Ryan? Or
I haven't, and you make me want to go see it. I remember seeing something on it, and now I want to see it.
Yep. It's a great one. That is my number one, The Handmaiden. Honorable mentions before we go to break. Matt, did you have any?
Well, speaking of Korean cinema, that just kind of made me think of Parasite. Would that be?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yep.
Driving Miss Daisy springs to mind. There's a case to be made for Cinderella, and there's an oddball zombie movie starring Billy Connolly, Fido, which I've brought up from time to time. Fits the role because the zombies in this film are sort of house servants. They mow the lawn. They do that sort of thing. So those are my honorables.
I also had Parasite, just didn't have it on my list because we've been talking about it and it's so new. Clue which I figured was just too much of a given. The Big Lebowski. Philip Seymour Hoffman does play the butler, does he not?
It's a stretch, but okay.
Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
Love this one. Michael Fassbender adaptation. Girl with the Pearl Earring also was solid, where he paints the girl with the pearl earring and she's the servant, and there's a love story in there. Who doesn't love a pearl earring and a love story? You know what I mean?
It's just a movie based on a painting, though, you know?
That's where the painting came from, damn
it.
There was a love story involved in that painting.
Was there, though?
Yes, absolutely. Right. This whole time you thought it was about a pearl earring. Unbelievable. All right. If we missed your favorite movie about servants and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw and we will retweet it. What we're going to do is take a quick break. When we come back, we have a CinemaWAR looking at the best cast member of The Little Things, plus movie trivia. Stick with us.
To close out Cinemajaw's Denzel Washington month, we pull the trigger and celebrate with this classic Denzel moment.
Player to player, pimp to pimp. I don't believe you shoot me, nigga. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't believe he got it in you, Jay. Shit. I'm gonna get that gun, and then I'm gonna get that money. And you ain't gonna do a damn thing, because you ain't gonna shoot no cop in the back, are you?
Don't do it.
You know what they give you for that? The gas chamber. You know what the gas chamber smells like? Pine oil. That's where you headed, boy. To pine oil heaven. I'm gonna get that gun, and then I'm gonna get that money. I don't believe you got it in you, Jake. I'm gonna go get it right now.
Oh! Get it! Ah, you motherfucker!
The next one will kill you.
Oh, son of a bitch!
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with filmmaker Ryann Liebl. Her new film, Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip, is available now to rent anywhere you can rent movies. What's the reception been like with Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip? It's out there, and then when you hear people rent it, isn't it fun and exciting to hear positive vibes? What's that reception like, and how's that feel?
Totally. I think, obviously it came out just in the last month, and I think it was well timed, being that 2020 was a really hard year for everybody. So a lot of people were just really excited to watch a funny comedy, So a lot of the feedback that I've gotten is just, thank you so much for writing this. It came at the right time. I watched this with all my girlfriends, and it was so great. I watched it with my wife, and it allowed us to sort of escape. So I think all of that has been really great, just to make people laugh and almost be it was shot pre-pandemic. So it's like they get to see it and sort of remember what life was like when you could get in a car and go talk to people, and, so
sure,
that's been great.
Yeah. I actually, during the pandemic, had some days left to take off, and you can't really go too far and everything's closed.
Yeah.
And so I went on like a sort of makeshift hiking trip with a best friend just around like the Mississippi River area. And we went down the Mississippi, different towns, and we were stopping, and it actually reminded me a little bit of Mags and Julie, because this was sort of like my best friend when we were very little, but me and him actually gone on a trip since college, when we went down to Florida on a spring break. So it's been many years. And now we get back in the car and I'm like, oh, got a podcast for us to listen to. And I got this ready. And then as soon as I start something, it's like, that's not going to work. And it was very much the same with Mags and Julie, right? They got a playlist that they're going to play. And getting in that car and being with a friend, it definitely brought those feels back for me. So recommend people check this one out.
Awesome.
You mentioned you're down in Florida pushing a new movie. Is there anything you can talk to us about, like what's coming up next?
Yeah, well, I've got I've got a bunch of stuff that's in pre-production. I've got a drama that I'm trying to shoot here in Florida. It's an uplifting drama, if that exists. It's based on a true story. It's about a law, and it's about a mom and her son. And he sort of gets into the system, and she has to get him out. It's kind of like Aaron Brockovich mixed with The Gift, mixed with Peanut Butter Falcon, that kind of vibe.
Oh, nice. Cool.
And then I've got a comedy that I'm trying to shoot in the UK and Scotland, but obviously they keep getting locked down. But that's another three female leads. It's a story that's actually based on my friend's story. It's this ridiculous, another ridiculous comedy where they all sort of, get into each other's lives, and then something happens and they're like, we have to go to Scotland and we have to go figure this out. And it's another ridiculous road trip journey. So,
all right.
Everything's kind of on hold, to it. But, it's moving.
Sure. All right. Matt, before we get to trivia and before we get to that CinemaWAR, we threw a few items into the fish tank, and I know Phil likes to go on road trips. So why don't we open up that fish tank?
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah, thank you guys for letting me out. We got a couple of things in here, but actually some pretty interesting stuff. Our first one, what does Guarding Tess have on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm dying for this one.
So,
Matt's number 5 pick. Should I write it in my journal or no?
It has a 57% fresh.
I will write it down, Matt. I was expecting single digits. I'm not going to lie.
So, well, here's what I will say is that this is probably the most divisive film in the world. Not just between, right? Like you think of Last Jedi and how like audiences hated it, but critics loved it. This was I have no idea what the hell to make of this.
It's Shirley MacLaine and Nicolas Cage. Of course you don't know what to make of it.
I mean, it already has piqued my interest.
It's bonkers.
New Yorker gave it a 1 out of 10. Okay.
There we
go. Then you have places like Variety and USA Today.
I'm totally
50 out of 100. Roger Ebert, 4.5 stars. 90%.
What?
All in on this film. So there's
whoa. So, but Ebert loved Fat Albert too, famously. He loved that movie. He was in a good mood that day. He saw Guarding Tess and he had fun with it, just like me.
If you're okay, I think maybe that might be the most telling. If you're comparing this film to Fat Albert,
I'm not comparing the film to Fat Albert. I'm just saying that Ebert gave Fat Albert 4 stars.
All right.
I didn't even know Ebert could go above 4 stars. He gave it 4.5 to Guardian.
On Rotten Tomatoes, I guess he could.
Oh, maybe it was 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, I think it was 3.5. I saw it was 4 filled up, 4 halfway filled in, 3.5. Thank you for correcting that.
That's still generous from him for sure.
Our next one is Minions streaming. So I have good and bad news. It is streaming. If you have DirecTV, it is on demand.
News, or was that the good news?
Well, you take it however you want to. It's also on FX Now if you have that, which I think increasingly less people. And then there's a streaming service that I've never heard of. I'm guessing because it pitches itself as a sports service called Fubo.
It's a big soccer.
So in addition, and Minions apparently
interesting.
It is there. And then our last one that we have in here that I was able to answer because I could not find the movie poster quote for Personal Shopper, but I will retroactively edit that in at the end. So listen to the end and you will hear like a spliced clip from that episode at the end of this episode.
Wow, you're going to go way back, huh?
I guess. Who is the main antagonist of Rebecca? That would be Mrs. Danvers.
Mrs. Danvers.
Mrs. Danvers.
Right.
Wasn't that long ago either. We were talking about the remake. Couldn't remember it. Thanks, Phil.
Now, we also had a poll question, right, Phil?
Yes, we did. It's in honor of our Denzel Washington month, which is wrapping up soon. So on Twitter, we threw out this question: which Oscar-winning performance by Denzel Washington is better, Glory or Training Day? We got our results here, but before we do that, I am curious to know how everyone in this room fares.
Glory or Training Day? Matt, where did you cast your vote?
I'm going with Training Day. I'm not going to lie. I haven't seen Glory in like 25 years. And it's just not that fresh in my mind. And I love Training Day. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. So going Training Day.
Ryan, where are you casting your vote?
Man, you know what? There's so many other things that Denzel's done that I thought were brilliant. And I get that he got Oscars for those or whatever, or nominated. Did he win Oscars?
He won for those 2, yeah.
I mean, I liked him in The Pelican Brief. I liked him in Crimson Tide. I liked him in Manchurian Candidate. I love him in sci-fi. And I love The Book of Eli that he did.
Ah, yes.
We just talked about that one.
We were
Yeah,
just
when it
talking
came
about
out. I actually didn't originally see it in 2010 when it was released. I saw it like a year ago. And I was like, this is a brilliant movie. And I thought he was brilliant in it. So I like it. I don't know. I don't know. I maybe let's say Glory, just because, you know, it's an important movie, but
it is.
Yep. I'm with you. I mean, everything he does, right, is pretty damn good. So narrowing it down to just these 2 because he won the awards, I see what you're saying. But if it's Glory or Training Day, this may shock people, Matt. I voted for Training Day. I love Glory, but I'm with you. I haven't seen it in a long time. Training Day, I've seen probably 2 or 3 times, and I'm a huge fan of that movie. So I did cast my vote for Training Day.
Nice.
That is so interesting to me. I have no idea what the hell our listeners like about this show, because you guys are in the minority. That is 54%, not a large minority, only slightly in the margins, but 54% of our pollees said that Glory is better.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know, the thing is, though, you're going to say Glory, I think, most of the time on a Twitter poll because it's the more prestigious of the 2 films and definitely the more important, as Ryan pointed out.
We had to watch it in school.
The other Ryan.
I think that was important too. I don't know if that might have just been my school.
It's a historic film, or a film about a historic thing, a war. So,
all right. Was that everything, Phil?
That is everybody.
All right, jump back in that fish tank.
You bet.
Matt, it brings us to a segment called
CinemaWAR.
The CinemaWAR, it works like this. Me and Matt, we're fighting on a topic. Our guest, Ryann Liebl, gets to play judge and jury and tell the jawheads who won this argument. Phil, tell the jawheads at home what today's CinemaWAR topic is.
In this week's Cinema War, Matt and Ryan are going to lay their cards on the table. It's the battle of jokers and queens, as Ryan and Matt decide who's the better actor between Rami Malek and Jared Leto. Matt, you've got Jared. Ryan, you've got Malek. Let this Cinema War begin.
Matt, after looking at the filmographies of the 2 actors, something struck me. Both started out with supporting roles in films, but Jared Leto has stayed in the supporting role. He has no starring roles where he's the main actor carrying the film. Rami Malek, however, graduated to lead actor and even won an Oscar for it in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. It may only take 30 seconds to Mars, but it's going to take a lifetime to get to a planet where Rami Malek is a better actor than Jared Leto. The kid just got a lucky break playing Freddie Mercury, and that's about it.
I came to know Rami Malek back in 2010, Matt, in the extraordinary miniseries The Pacific, where he played a soldier by the name of Snafu. I knew then this guy was going to be a star. Since then, he's anchored a massive TV show in Mr. Robot, took supporting roles in quality films such as The Master, and will next be seen as the villain in the James Bond movie, No Time to Die. He's a force.
It's true that Jared Leto's had some duds, but that's because he's just done more. Dallas Buyers Club, got an Oscar for that. Suicide Squad, Requiem for a Dream, Blade Runner, just to name a few. Malek is mostly known for his TV show, Mr. Robot. Leto has some 30 plus films to his name. Malek just isn't there yet, dude.
However, Jared Leto had cornrows in the movie Panic Room. Cornrows. You should lose just for that.
All right, Rye. Who can forget the end of Requiem for a Dream? It's devastating. The anguish and addiction that Leto gets onto the screen will haunt you for the rest of your days. What's Malek done that even comes close? Hey-oh. It's nothing.
Say what you will about Bohemian Rhapsody, but everyone agrees Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury was something special. Another favorite movie of mine is Short Term 12. And while he has a minor role in the film, his presence is felt. Malek is an actor that demands your attention. Jared Leto, meanwhile, goes for crazy like he did as the Joker, and no one cared. Cornrows.
Look, don't get me wrong. If this was about potential, I might have to give the tip to Malek, who is 10 years younger than Leto. But this is about who is the better actor now. And Malek did 3 Night at the Museum films, a Twilight sequel, an adaptation of a racing video game, Need for Speed, before his big break as Freddie Mercury. And what does he follow it up with? Doolittle. I mean, the name says it all right there. I call that a low output, Rye.
We are button heads here on CinemaWAR. We throw it to our guest, our jury. Ryann Liebl, what did you think of this CinemaWAR?
Well, guys, these guys are so different.
They are.
I mean, we're talking about completely different people, you know? I mean, Jared is very much a character actor. You know, he's not really a leading man type dude. He's like a character actor. He's very mercurial. He kind of loses weight. He does all these things as Jared. He's very indie. You know what I mean? Rami, I mean, he's sort of, God, that guy, if he got the right parts and the right script, to me, he's like a Tom Cruise. He's got so much life force that I want to see him in everything. Because the way that he gets into stuff, and there's so much joy in his work that he's like, to me, he's like an incredible human being to watch. So, guys, I don't even know how you compare the two of them. It's just so very different. So I don't know. I think I've got to go with Rye on this and Rami.
Yes.
I respect it. He is really good. There's no doubt.
He really is. And I just think, you know, Hollywood's a funny place. You know, there are really amazing people out there, incredible actors, and they get the wrong agent or they don't decide to produce their own stuff.
There you go.
And they then don't do great stuff. So I don't know. I think, yeah. Rami on this
Awesome.
one.
Earns me 20 seconds of jaw time. I'm going to make it only 10 seconds. Matt, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, you were talking about how you keep a journal. And I said, I do the same and I write movies down.
Yeah.
Always at the beginning of the year, 2021, it's a great time to set goals for your movie watching, right? We're always learning more. I'm trying to focus on watching a lot more older movies. And I noticed on HBO Max, they have a lot of Turner Classic movies.
Nice.
On HBO Max. So if you're thinking about getting HBO Max or you have it, look at some of the older movies playing there and watch some classics. So.
And we should totally mention that they are not a sponsor of the show.
They are not.
Yeah.
Just a rant. Just a rant there. All right, Matt, it brings us to trivia. You can hear the music playing. Everybody knows it's time to play some movie trivia. And in honor of Ryan's movie, Mags and Julie Go on a Road Trip, we are playing Road Trip movie trivia. Ryan, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first. Let Matt K go first. There are steals, and if you get hung up on a question, you get one rescue. Rescue me, Ryan. I have clues to all the questions. And I think they start out easy, so.
Well, we shall see. I'm not great at movie trivia, but I am so up to play. Let's do it.
All right. You want to go first? Question one?
Sure, why not?
Question one over to Ryan. Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church go on a road trip, drinking wine and tour the Napa Valley in this 2005 film?
Yes. And here's the deal. I know exactly what movie you're talking about, and I cannot think of the freaking title. And I've watched it many, many, many times, and it's one of my favorite sort of dark comedies because I used to go to Solvang and all of these places that they go to all the time in the movie when I lived in LA. I can't remember the title. I'm so sorry.
Oh boy.
But it's a great movie.
It is a great one. Matt, you got a chance for a steal on question 1.
This is not drinking any Merlot. Sideways.
There we go. Sideways it is.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
1-0. Question 2 is over to Matt K. Matt, we all know Chevy Chase starred in National Lampoon's Vacation circa 1983. Who directed the film?
Who directed Vacation?
Correct.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. That's a really good question. I should know this. I want to say like Harold Ramis, but that's probably wrong. Like, who else was like one of the big broad comedy directors of that era? What year did you say?
1983.
Oh, wow. I'll just guess Harold Ramis. I'm pretty sure it's wrong.
That is correct.
Really?
Yes. Harold Ramis. Yes.
I didn't know that he directed those. What?
Yeah. John Hughes wrote Vacation. Harold Ramis directed Vacation. Looked it up
Yeah,
today.
I was going to say John Hughes, but he didn't always direct his own stuff. So.
Wow. It is 2-0, Matt K. I don't like the way this is going, Ryan. Question 3 is over to you. Name the actress who played the mother in Little Miss Sunshine.
The mother in Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah. Have you seen Little Miss Sunshine?
Yeah, but that
Beauty
was a long
pageant?
time ago.
It's a famous actress.
I honestly have no clue. And that's so sad because I like that movie.
Mm-hmm. Final answer? No clue?
Final.
That is incorrect. That is incorrect. Matt, you got a chance for a steal.
I know it's I think it's Toni Collette, right?
It is Toni Collette. 3-0.
Ryan,
this
I'm
is not
sorry.
good.
It's really okay, guys. As I said, I'm really bad at movie trivia.
Question 4 over to Matt K. Matt, in 2010, Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis starred in a road trip movie directed by Todd Phillips. Name it.
So you're telling me that Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis starred in a road trip movie together?
Yeah.
Is it Between Two Ferns? I have no clue.
Incorrect. Ryan, you got a chance for a steal here. Maybe you saw this movie, Zach Galifianakis, Robert Downey Jr.
I did see it. It was a ridiculous movie. It was very much like The Hangover and stuff. It was in that vein.
You're due for a right answer. Due
date.
That is correct. She is on the board. 3-1. There you go. 3-1. Question 5 is over to you. Name Jim Carrey's road partner in the 1994 film Dumb and Dumber. Jim Carrey and who?
Oh, it's not Bill Pullman. It's the frick is that guy's name?
Oh boy.
The guy that people confuse with Bill Pullman.
Oh no, that's so sad for him. And he hasn't done much lately.
This is true.
Right?
Yeah.
What has he done lately? We haven't seen him in anything lately. I honestly don't remember his name. I would say I don't remember.
Final answer?
Yeah, final.
I think probably the last thing he did was the Dumb and Dumber sequel recently.
Yeah.
But he's huge, right? He was in Terms of Endearment, Jeff Daniels, right?
That is.
Daniels.
Yes, it is Jeff Daniels.
That's right.
Yep. 4-1, Matt K. And question. What are we on
I
here?
think we're
6.
on 7. 6?
Yeah,
Okay.
6 is over to you.
I can't
Matt,
count.
name the Sex and the City star who played the transgender character Bree in the 2006 road trip movie Transamerica.
The Sex and the City actor.
Yeah.
Who played,
or actress.
Right.
Who played the transgender character Bree.
You know, the only one I know is Sarah Jessica Parker. Oh, wait, no. And then there's Kim Cattrall.
Incorrect. It's not Sarah Jessica Parker.
I was going to say Kim Cattrall.
Is this person actually transgender?
No, it's an actress who played transgender. And he had 2 of the actresses wrong there.
So
I don't know
in
if
other
you're a
words,
Sex and the City fan.
It wasn't Sarah Jessica Parker or Kim Cattrall.
Yeah.
No clue.
We were looking for Felicity Huffman. Good movie, Transamerica, actually. Question 7 is over to Ryan. Ryan, in the film Almost Famous, name the actor who plays the lead of the band Stillwater, Russell Hammond.
The only person I remember from Almost Famous is Kate Hudson.
Incorrect. Matt, you got to guess. Who played Russell Hammond in Almost Famous?
Jason Lee?
He is in there. We were looking for Billy Crudup.
Oh, Billy.
Last question of the game, number 8, over to Matt K. Name the 2013 film that starred Jennifer Aniston and Jason Sudeikis that sees a family go to Mexico, a fake family go to Mexico to smuggle drugs.
Rescue Me, Ryan.
Whoa, Rescue Me, Ryan. Question number 8. Your clue is, if you get this one right, it's Miller time.
Miller's Crossing?
Ooh, that is incorrect. Ryan, you got a chance for a steal here.
It's a road trip movie.
It is. Miller is in the title, obviously.
Isn't it the Miller family or something?
Yeah, we'll give it to it. We're the Millers.
There you go.
Matt does win this one. Can we get a virtual handshake?
Yes. Virtual fist bump.
There you go. If it came down to a tie, we call it a jawbreaker. This question would have been over to Ryan. Who's the more talented actor, Jennifer Aniston or Jason Sudeikis?
I like Jason. Sorry. Although Jennifer was great.
Oh, that's right. Actually, it's correct.
Okay.
The real jawbreaker was this: age of Jeff Daniels closest to. Matt, you got a guess?
I was just thinking about this. So he's got to be, I mean, in terms of endearment, Jesus. I'll say he's 63 years old.
Lock him in at 63. Ryan, you got a guess?
Of Jeff Daniels now?
Yeah.
Wow. 65 maybe?
Wow. Should have been playing ages. 65 on the nose. Give that one to Ryan. Turned 66 in February.
Oh, well, happy birthday, Jeff Daniels.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. It brings us to the end of a very fun and entertaining Jaw. First and foremost, got to thank our guest, Ryan. Thanks for coming on CinemaJaw. Nice meeting you.
Oh, it was so much fun, guys. I really appreciate it.
Best of luck with the movie.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's super exciting.
We also got to thank our engineer, our producer. He fills us in on everything. Filmy and Phil.
Oh, yeah, of course. Happy to do it, guys.
Matt, we also got to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get great sponsors like them.
If you would like to support CinemaJaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
And while you're at it, please click subscribe. And hey, check us out on YouTube. We've been doing a lot of cool new animations over there. Subscribe there as well. That would be helpful.
Until next week, I'm Ryan the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt K.
And keep on jawing about the movies.